So I'm deep into training for a sub 1930 5k. That'll be a PB for me, and this is week 3. I'm only filming the long run this week. Big session, big long run. These structured long runs are the ones that are going to give me some of the biggest return on my time and my investment. So the first interval is coming up, and as we go through the session today, I'm going to talk to you about the psychology of running a hard 5k and the kind of mental barrier that I know I struggle with when it comes to believing that I'm a good enough runner to run at those sorts of paces. Now, if I take you back to the first ever run that I posted on Strava back in sort of 2012, I think. I'll put it up on the screen. You know, my average pace was in the 6 minutes per kilometre, I think. 10-minute miling. And I remember that run so vividly. I remember the first 300 metres feeling like, yes, this is right. I can do running. Running is really natural. And then about 400 metres in, the lungs started to burn. Now, if you were to have told me in those early days when I was running 30, 35-minute 5Ks that eventually I'd be able to do sub 25Ks, I wouldn't have believed you at that point, because I was so far away from those sorts of paces or distances. All right, second interval coming up. Now, the route I'm running is a bit undulating, so there will be some reps that are gonna drop under the prescribed pace, but then there will be some where it's a lot easier, particularly towards the end of the run. Whew. Rep 2 done. Now, I firmly believe that we all have a latent ability to be pretty good at something that you set your mind to. It's in all of us. Now, obviously, genetics, environment, lifestyle choices, all of those things are going to play a role in just the speed of that progression and kind of where you get to. Lots of those things you can control: your nutrition, your rest to a certain extent, the training that you do, your progression. And my point is, in those early days of taking up running, the gains are rapid. You know, as long as you are sensible, your kit's decent, not overly expensive, just decent, and you're not going out doing too much too quickly, you are going to go from 0 to 80% of your potential, I'd say, fairly quickly. Making up the last 20% or so to get to your full potential, that's the challenge. Oh, that was a tough one. That was mainly uphill. Whew. Okay. So how do I break through? Well, I focus on 3 key words: control, consistency, and conquer. Firstly, control. Now, I think arguably this makes up some of the biggest downfalls for us. What can I actually control about my day-to-day that is going to put me in an optimal state to train well and achieve those goals? So I know I need to get sleep. It's such a hack. It makes such a difference. If you are running on suboptimal sleep, you are not going to be running well. And to a large extent, we can control this. Yeah, there might be times when life gets in the way, And yes, I've got small humans. I know in those early days, you're just in maintenance mode, survival mode. So don't worry if you've got really little ones, because you'll get through that part and then you can go again. I also have control over my diet. If I am fueled by pepperoni pizza and chicken wings on a nightly basis, oh yeah, it's gonna taste good the night before, but it is not gonna feel good the next day. So let me tell you about this monster of a long run today. It's about 21.5k, 4k warm up, and I'm right in the meat of the session now, which is 10 1 mile sort of intervals, and it's essentially a fartlek. And I'm alternating between just below 5k pace, sort of around 4:05 to 4:15, and then easy pace. Now the just below 5k pace is for about 650 meters. On in. And then the kilometer is easy. So each rep is about a mile in total. And then by the end of the session, I will have accumulated the 21k total volume, but 6.5k at sort of sub threshold, I suppose, just below that 5k effort. Next, consistency. So this is what you're doing day in, day out from a training perspective. And it's not about whether it's the best plan, but finding the right plan for what you are able to achieve. You know, and you've got to think about that jump. If you've just run a 25-minute 5k and you set yourself the sights of a sub 20, and you train, or you have a plan that's training you for that, there's a good chance that you might come up short. That jump might be too big. And so what happens? You skip workouts, you can't complete the designated workouts, and the consistency isn't there, and you fail. But what's actually happened is it's just not the right plan for where you are now. And finally, conquer. This is up here. This is in your head. If I go back to those first runs that I did in 2012, and the message at the start of this video about if you were to tell me how I would be running 12 years later, I wouldn't have believed you. But over time, and through controlling the external things that might be damaging my running, being consistent in my training blocks, I've been able to bring those times down. And I can run for longer, and I can run faster. So the way I conquer this barrier between me and achieving that next goal of a personal best, at the moment in a 5k, but it could be anything. It could be running your first marathon, running your first 100 miles, whatever the goal. It's about looking back at those sort of micro achievements that you made along the way. You know, reflect back on the times when you've nailed the races. It's all come together. You can do it. Think back to those key training sessions where you've hit the paces that you've needed to. So my aim with the word conquer is not to like berate myself and sort of go all David Goggins on myself. You know, you've got to be kind, but also, you know, celebrate what you have done and where you have come from, but also know that this is just another stepping stone. You know, if it doesn't work out this time, you can go again. It's not all on this one run. I'm in the last one now, last of the 10. Hear the beeps. That's it. Woo. Nice one. That's good. Really good. All right. So that ends the week. I'm going to put my usual end of week stats up on the screen because this is going to increase the fitness score, blah blah blah, all that sort of stuff. So here they are. The average weight is, my Strava fitness score is, and my predicted Strava times are now what I don't know is if any of those are positive numbers, but my positivity this week is that it's ended strong. It is going to end strong, and then that builds nicely into next week because we've got some spicy sessions next week. So do all the usual things that I like to ask you to do at the end of a video: like, subscribe, share, and I'll see you in the next training video very soon.